Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Domino Low-Code Tools, our transformational webinar today. I am Barry Rosen, and I'm here with my colleague, Marty Lechleder. Marty, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Good morning, good evening. Yeah, Marty Lechleder. I'm the product manager for Domino Volt as well as HCL Leap, and glad to be here with Barry.
Excellent, and I'm Barry Rosen, and I'm the Senior Director of Product Management for Domino and Same Time. So let's get started. We've got a lot of topics to cover today, so next slide, please. So for those of you, this is kind of a very brief overview of what Domino is. I'm sure most of you who are on this call have a really good understanding of what Domino is. Domino has been around in the market for about 30 years. Today, what we're really going to cover is what you see in the upper left-hand quadrant, which is the low-code app dev aspect of Domino. What's really great about Domino is it is a platform that is architected from the ground up upon a secure model of public and private key encryptions and certificates. It's an integrated database, app development tools, directory, web platform, email, and security. There's really no separate environments that you need to maintain and build, and easy to maintain and upgrade. It's really, really powerful. It's been around for 30 years. It's fully backwards and forward compatible. We're on version 12, so we've been around for a while, and there are applications that have been running on Domino for 20 years that still run on earlier versions that will still run on version 12. So as you can see, it's a very, very strong platform. So we're going to really focus on the low code aspect. So let's talk about that in the next slide. So one of the things that I really like about Domino, besides the fact that it's super secure, is that it gives anyone the capability to develop applications. So you've got everything from a low-code development platform to kind of a mid-code to pro-code, all in one. And we're going to talk about this, and we're going to really dive deep into this aspect of the platform in the next couple of slides. And Marty's actually going to give some demos and some details into Volt, which is our citizen development platform that goes on top of Domino. But first, let's talk about how some of our customers are taking advantage of some of the latest features in the platform. So Marty, next slide, please. All right, so what we've done here, these are actually persona customers, but the numbers that you're seeing are based on real customers. I've worked with our sales team, I've worked with our services team to put these numbers together. So the numbers that you're seeing are real. These are not real customers, but these are real numbers that we used with these customers. So let me tell you a little bit about our customer Swell Oil Drilling. They're a customer that has been using Domino for about 15 years. Right now, they're on 901 FP10. It's pretty stable for them, but as you know, we've recently announced the end of support for version 9 and version 10. So because of that, Swell has decided to go ahead and take advantage of the new features in the platform and upgrade to version 9. But one of the things that has really kind of kept them on they've decided to upgrade to version 12. But one of the things that has really kept them on version 9 for so long is the Notes client. Because being an oil offshoring company, they have all over the world, and oftentimes they're in low bandwidth situations, sometimes on oil rigs, and they're months away from seeing anyone from IT. So it makes it very difficult to upgrade the Notes client. But what they've realized is that in version 12, we've introduced Nomad. And Nomad will allow them to upgrade directly to version 12, keep all of their existing applications, all of their workflow that they're using on Domino, and literally skip the client deployment. And this is really, really exciting to them, and this has been proven out. So let's look at that next slide. So, what were the benefits of doing this? And this is an actual real customer quote. So the customer quote up here is real. around Nomad. That is an actual quote. And I know you're looking at some of these numbers here and you're like, whoa, that's pretty big, $1.58 million. How did they save that kind of money just by going to Nomad? Well, it's really interesting. So when I spoke to our services team, and thank you very much, Stuart McKay, for helping me out on this, what we found is that when a person has a Nodes client, they open an average of 7.78 help tickets a month. The average cost of those tickets to IT is $113 per user. So what they found is many organizations, after moving away from the Nodes client to Nomad, have reduced their help desk tickets by 30%. So when you look at these numbers and you put them together, that's where it adds up to 1.58 million over 12 months. So they've saved almost $1.6 million just strictly in tickets alone, in cost savings and tickets alone, by deploying Nomad. And what happens is the reason that people call in is, they forgot their passwords, their ID expired, they're unable to find the application, they've got ACL issues. A lot of those go away with the Nomad client because it's really easy to maintain. There's nothing on the desktop for the end user. It is all within a browser. So now they're accessing those business critical applications just like they did before with the Nodes client, but they're doing it via a browser. And from an end user perspective, what this means is improves the usability. It reduces the help desk expenses, as I just proved out and explained how we got to that 1.6 million. It minimizes the desktop refresh, and it really positions you for an advanced modernization in the future. You're no longer tied to a thick client on the desktop, and you can move at the speed of light because now you're really doing everything through a browser. And when we talked about this time savings, we came up with the 3 weeks because in a typical deployment scenario, if you employed a services team to help you deploy a Nodes client, there's a process that they take to package the Nodes client where they will, create a package for you to then deploy. And then it typically takes, depending on the size of your company and the number of users that you have and the number of desktops that you need to reach, between 6 and 12 months to then push that package that we developed or maybe you developed in-house to all of your end users across the room. By going with Nomad, all you have to do is upgrade the Domino server, and every single user on the Domino server, the next time they access that server, which could be over a weekend, and then the Monday afternoon, you provide them with a URL and they are instantly in use of Nomad and rolling out Nomad within your organization. It makes really the upgrade process from version 9 to version 12 quite simple. And one of the most exciting things that is coming up in our Danube version that is coming out at the end of this year is the ability to have safe links, the reverse proxy functionality built into Domino. So the requirement to install safe links to have the Nomad capability has been removed. So we're really trying to remove all of the barriers, both from the Domino administration side as well as from the desktop side when you're doing your upgrades. We're really focused on making it easy and simple for you to upgrade from earlier versions to our latest releases. All right, well, let's take a look at the next customer that we're looking at, which is, let's look at that next slide, Frank's Apple Orchard. So this is a really cool kind of customer as well, really unique in what they do. Frank's Apple Orchard is really a delightful place full of beauty, fun, and good times. They feature large, old apple trees, sweeping views of the lake, and they also have a wine tasting building there so they can get extra additional business. So they've also been using Domino for about a decade. They're a little bit more advanced in their version of Domino. They're on version 1101. They're out of Vermont, and they use Notes and Nomad. So what they're having is they've got some applications that they've built a long time ago, maybe about 10 years ago. They really function well. There's no need to really update those, but the UI is updated. And some of the end users are starting to complain, and their end users are really their employees. And they're really just not happy with the look and feel. IT loves the functionality, but you know what? At the end of the day, it's all about making our end users happy. So they don't really have a lot of time and budget, being a smaller company, to really focus on the UI. So what we've done, and we'll take a look at that next slide, in the next version of Domino, which is coming up, as I mentioned, in O&D, we've introduced a new functionality called Restyle. And so Franks is really excited about this functionality because what they can do with Restyle is they can instantly, very quickly, take one of their existing applications, not even mess with the workflow, and going through a couple of screens of a wizard, choose some modern looking colors and modern looking outlines and UIs, and update their applications in about 5 minutes. Typically, what we found, we did an experiment internally. We took our internal templates and we took an advanced Domino developer who had 20+ years of experience, and we asked him to completely modernize the templates and the UI. You've seen the results. We've shipped some of those templates, but it took a very advanced Domino developer about 2 weeks per template to do this. That's a lot of time. So what we thought is, you know what, we can see some patterns here. We can automate this process, and in under 5 minutes, you can do that. And really, from a cost savings perspective, what we did here is they had 4 databases, 2 weeks each database, which is 8 weeks total. If you went to our services, that would cost you about $250K approximately to do that. You would have a lovely output. We would be really happy. You'd give us $250K for our services, and your end users would be really happy as well. But you know what? We've decided to eliminate that and give every customer the opportunity to go ahead and restyle their applications and make them look gorgeous again. And this is what it's really all about. So this is something that we've gotten a lot of really positive feedback from our customers. We debuted this at one of our conferences earlier this year. This is currently in the sandbox. You'll have an opportunity at the end of this presentation to get some links where what you can do is upload your own application to the sandbox and then run it through the Restyle. Really, really cool. And then please give us feedback on what you see. This is very early in the process. It's a beta, but we promise by the end of the year it will GA. And of course, we will iterate on this. This will be an MVP, and there will be much improvement and additional functionality based on your comments, your feedback, your direction. We'd love to hear it all. All right, so let's look at our last customer scenario here. This is Baldwin Design Agency, and they're definitely a really interesting customer as well. They're a medium-sized business. They're about 2,000 employees. Their headquarters are in Chicago. They do have offices in NYC, San Francisco, Austin, Atlanta. You can see they're very US, North America focused, but they're really advanced in terms of their Domino deployment. They've only been using Domino for about 3 years, so they're on the most current version of Domino, and they're really pushing what they can do with Domino. They've got a bunch of mobile applications that they use with Nomad, but there are some additional features that they could really use to kind of push these over the edge and make them really pop. And what they're really excited about is the GPS capability and the signature capture, which is really going to really make the customer on-site interaction more efficient. All right, so let's look at how they solved that challenge that they had with the latest version of Domino. So let's go to that next slide. Yeah, so what they did is they added the capability of the add signature to existing applications. What this does is this allows them to capture a customer signature via the Nomad app. And so within the app, you can have someone sign either with a touch device or with their finger, it capture that signature. And for this particular customer, for Baldwin Designs, they were using an application that they created specifically to finish their deals with their customers, kind of like a punch list application. And what they had done is everything was automated except for the final sign off of the customer that they needed to complete the transaction. Once they receive the customer signature, they can complete the transaction. It was done. They can move on to their next sale. What they were previously doing before this functionality is they were printing out the punch list once it was complete, and then they were having the customer physically sign that. Then they would take a picture with their phone and then capture that picture in the app, attach that as a PDF to the application, and then it would get processed. Not the most efficient way to do that. So when the signature capture capability came around, they've added that to their application, and that saves 15 minutes per transaction because it took them that long to print it out, capture the physical signature, scan it back by phone, and then reattach it into the application. So now with that, they're saving 15 minutes per transaction. And now the end users can fulfill that instantly. Once that punch list is completed, they can get the signature immediately. And what's happened is that it's actually improved their sales. They've seen a sales increase of 5% because now sales doesn't have to worry about printing, scanning, picturing, taking pictures. They can just move on to the next customer. So that 15 minutes has added up to about 5% in sales. So really cool how you can see how technology solving customer problems actually can lead to business value. So that's what we're really trying to show here with some of these examples. So I've taken about 20 minutes of the time, and I want to pass it on to my esteemed colleague, Marty. He's going to talk about Domino Vault, and Domino Vault is really interesting, and he's going to show you how you can solve your problems really fast and give you some specific examples and even a great demo as well.
Thanks, Barry. Great job. So let's talk about Domino Vault. Before we talk about Domino Vault, let's kind of set the stage and what's going on in the marketplace. I mean, you've all heard about low code and no code. And what's the difference between these two? Well, for the most part, they align towards different audiences. No code is all about business users. They don't think like IT. They don't necessarily know how to write code. Well, maybe they can use an at formula or something like that in a spreadsheet. But for the most part, they need tools that are fairly simple and easy to use, and they've got a lot of problems that they need to solve. And so there's a need that's there. When you get into low code, well, here's where you kind of build off of a lot of the visual paradigms that we see for building applications. And when you add the ability to expose objects in code, well, you increase the flexibility and, of course, the speed over traditional development. Is coding expertise mandatory? Not typically, but it's often very helpful because it enables you to do a lot of other interesting things that non-coders can't do. And when you get into this tool set, which is really focused on the low code space, you often see other features which are very IT centric around CI/CD and the sort of things that you need to think about to ensure that you've got the performance and the security for your app. And what you're building in each one of these scenarios, whether you're a business user using no code or an IT person using a low code tool, what you're building are different. Building out the run your business, the operational sort of applications, that's the domain of IT. You wouldn't want a business user to do that. Business users, on the other hand, they're using whatever tools they can get their hands on to solve their needs. And there's this desire to be more efficient, to be more creative, be more intuitive. And of course, the business users are closest to the business, so the insights are there. So there's a space for both. What's interesting about Domino Vault is it's primarily focused in the no code space, but you can code with it. We'll get into that in a little bit. But suffice it to say that the future looks bright for these sort of capabilities, and it all started way back when with Domino, when you think about it. But Gartner's now saying that a good percentage of apps are going this way in the future. So the problems that Domino Vault is really good at, if an organization is doing a lot in spreadsheets, if there's paper or manual processes, and often when you're doing things by emailing spreadsheets and it's manual, you don't have the visibility into the process. You don't have an audit trail. Uh, maybe there's difficulty showing compliance. Did these 3 different departments that are supposed to sign off on this particular sort of request, did they do that? Well, I don't know. Let me look at my inbox. That's difficult to kind of pull out and show proof. Maybe it's more in the marketing vein of things. Are we able to engage our customers in different programs? Maybe there's some sort of gated offer that we want to put on our website to capture leads. Can IT help us with a lot of this stuff? Well, maybe, but this stuff that we're focused on as business users typically falls below their radar. And even if they were to do it, it'd be too expensive. So what happens is business users, one way or another, they're going to solve these problems. And if they're not using Domino Vault, they're going to go find some other service, and perhaps it's not sanctioned by IT. So the focus of Domino Vault really is the business users. How do we enable them to be more productive? So you can think of Domino Vault as an add-on to Domino. It's additional capabilities that run on top of Domino. It gives you this browser-based IDE. You can build forms, views, workflows. You can integrate with your Domino directory and data, specify the business rules you want, and under the covers, it's all running in Domino. It's using the Domino database security, messaging, runtime, web services, etc. So business users can come in and with little or no training, they can build these apps out. They don't need Domino skills. They don't need IT skills. And they can solve their issues. And best of all, it's leveraging the infrastructure that you have in place, the infrastructure that, as a Domino shop, you've got a lot of faith in, is there and secure and is reliable. And the economics of adding Domino Vault on top of Domino, it beats the competition hands down. So if you look at, and we will do a brief demo after this, but if you look at the product, building an app is not intimidating. Again, designed for the business user. Everything you do is in a browser, and you simply just sketch out your app. You define your fields, your forms. You can start with a blank canvas. If you have a spreadsheet, you can bring that in. It'll create an app from that. You can start with an existing app. Perhaps you've got a library of templates that you're working with. And you can build apps for, all kinds of things. Maybe you want to collect some data, you want to build an app for some approval process, or perhaps there's some workflow progression that you want to track around some document being prepared. You've got a visual workflow designer, so you can sketch out the different workflow steps, assign roles to each step, add the email notifications. You've got the ability to create custom views through a wizard sort of approach. And then you've also got a number of different automatic views which you get of your data, just like you would in Notes. And you have automatic charts of your data that are there if you want to use them as well. And then, because it's running on top of Domino, when you're building your app, you may want to get some information out of the Domino directory. Who is this person that's using the app? What's their display name? What's their user ID? Who do they work for? If it's a workflow app, it's pretty important to know who they work for if you want to route something for approval. Maybe there's data in another Domino application that you have, and you want to leverage that data. So you can query the different views that you have in a Domino database. You can select individual documents from a view based on a criteria. You can read a single document, you can create a document, you can update a document, you can delete a document, you can even run an agent. In the next release of Domino Vault, which is coming out in November, we're going to support something called rich text round tripping. So if you're familiar with Domino, and I suspect you are being on this webinar, you know that rich text in Domino it's not HTML. It's something that kind of existed before HTML, and there are many applications that people use that use rich text fields. I mean, the classic are your document library apps, where you've got a rich text field and you can type into it, you can format the text, you can paste whatever you want in there, you can add file attachments. It's like having a bucket where you can put everything you want in there. And it's very useful for, document management, case style applications. Now, currently, Domino Vault will read the rich text from Domino, but we can't go the other way. With the November release, we're going to be able to go the other way. So what this means is that you could build a Domino Vault app, which essentially becomes a web app running against your Domino database with rich text fields. So it's a way to, if you think about it, webify some of those apps that you may have that make extensive use of rich text fields. So in Domino Vault, you'll just get a big rich text field and you can drop your files in there, add your pictures and all that stuff, and you can see them in notes and vice versa. So round tripping. So we're real excited about that, and you'll see some demos of that later on in the year, as we get closer to that in the release of that release of Domino Vault. But in the spirit of talking about use cases and the sort of business value that these products provide, this is one app that I found really interesting, and it's a real app, and it hits a pattern that I see over and over again, and there's just tremendous benefit that has been gained from this application. So this organization, they have an internal service department, and the way they were working is that the team of folks in the service department, they had a group email, and if you needed to request something, you would send an email to the group email. So the email would then be assigned to somebody manually, and they would work it and eventually fulfill the request. Well, they ran into all kinds of problems. So when the email came in, oftentimes it didn't have all the information really needed to start to work. They had no way really to track the work that was being done. There was no audit trail, no ability to see the turnaround time on the work that they were providing, the service that they were providing. They had no ability to establish service level agreements. And if you're the person requesting the work, you really don't know what's going on. There's no visibility into the status of the request. Are you working on it? Is it almost done? Is it ready for me to sign off on it? So they needed all these things, and when you have a service being offered like this internally, if you want to bring it up to scale, you have to have these sort of things. You can't do it manually, which email really is a manual process. So the team created this app in a couple of weeks, and it's been in play for about a year now, and they've seen over 1,700 requests through the system. And the results are that it's greatly streamlined the process. They have real good visibility into the process and are able to track things efficiently. And the level of service is probably the most important benefit. The level of service being delivered has increased. So everybody's happy. And you can see the workflow on the right there, which is pretty close to how you would define that in the application. Other applications that I see over and over again a lot of business people, they find Domino Vault is just an incredible way to reach out to customers and partners. If organizations are like HCL, we're running programs all the time. You know, it's being in business is about reaching out and engaging your customers, and by putting this tool in the hands of business users, they can create these forms. They can figure out who's showing up to what, and they can track them in the program. You can do surveys, get feedback from your customers. Our marketing team, they use it extensively for what we refer to as gated offers. They're quite sophisticated in you know, what they're doing with this as well. They're able to look at the email address that's entered into a form, and if it's not the proper business email address, they'll ask you for one. Sorry, this is Gmail. We don't want Gmail in here. They're able to do an IP lookup to figure out what part of the world you live in, and you know, based on that information and the product that you're making an inquiry about, they can alert and route you to the appropriate sales follow-up person. Um, you know, and this list goes on. So partner co-marketing proposals, contractor onboarding is something interesting. You know, today's workforce is pretty dynamic. And I suppose that's a trend that is increasing going into the future. How do you onboard and offboard you know, people, particularly if your business is very project oriented. You know, as projects spin up, you need people. As projects wind down, they need to move to other things. How do you know, there's different forms and paperwork that you need to take them through. Our sales organization, and I see this with others, they're finding the product is great for building focused little query apps for going into CRM and getting information. Tell me about this customer. What products are they entitled to? What are the different part numbers for this particular product? What are their prices? You know, in different currencies. And, you know, those sort of queries, giving an app that just really simplifies it down to a few selections is quite valuable to our sellers. And things like calculators, sales program enrollment, customer events. Going to the right here, more on the internal side of producing work, if you will. So this idea of ticketing and issue tracking, which if you think about the example I talked about on the previous chart, that is kind of a ticketing issue tracking. You know, there's a request, and then there's work that ensues, and then finally something is done or closed. With HR, we're seeing it for a number of different programs. Things where you need to engage employees. Maybe you want to create something where employees can anonymously provide feedback or perhaps submit ideas. Onboarding employees, how do we get them set up with an email ID, a laptop, those sort of things. Approval and tracking, quality programs and compliance, that's a big area. Work preparation, whether it's a quote or some statement of work, maybe it's a certification. There's a number of different steps involved with achieving a certification. Inspections, assessments, risk assessments. So these are things that, you know, if I look at all of them or most of them, in many cases they're being done with things that you would get from Microsoft Office, like Excel or maybe SharePoint lists. And there's a better way to do this, a much better way to do this. So let's get in, we'll take a look at the product. All right, so I've got Domino Vault here. Let's just refresh my screen to see if I'm still logged in. Yep, I am. All right, I'm going to start with this particular app here, deal tracking. This is a simple pattern. So the idea is I've got different records or documents, if you will. And each one of these documents, I'll open one up here, is essentially it's a form and it's got deal information in it. So I can see that this is a deal in the early stages, and I can update this deal. I can go back to the list. If I want a new deal, I can get a blank form, go back to the list. If I want to look at all the deals that are related to mountain biking, I can do that. If I want to look at all the deals that are related to a particular rep, I can do that. If I want to reset the filter, I can do that. If I want to see some charts, I can do that. So it's information. I'm just tracking it. And there's some update to the records over time, a pattern that fits many, many applications. So how does this one work? How is it set up? So this is the application in the IDE, if you will. So I'm here in my browser and I'm looking at the pages in the application. I've got a form with one page on it, the deal form. And then I've got a page here for the view, which we'll call the data grid, and then a view for the charts. So when you create a form, you simply just take and you put fields onto the page. And when you put fields onto the page, it creates the data model in the background automatically for you. And you can label these things directly. You can add rows, insert rows. You can put things in sections. So if I wanted to maybe display the title bar, I could do that. Or if I want to make this collapsible, so you see a little collapse chevron there. You know, lots of little clever things you can do to lay this out. You can bring in pictures, add a file. You can bring it in from a URL. You can look at all the different files that you have associated with this app. So I've got some other pictures here. Go back to the form. So, you know, fairly simple layout. And then on the data grid, this grid here, the way I set this up is I simply use this configure wizard. So it'll ask you, well, what's the form? What data source did you want to use? And then what information did you want to display in the grid? So I've got some of the fields checked. And then it's going to ask me how you want to define the columns. So I've shortened some of the labels. And you can get into defining filters. So I defined a couple of filters. There's a product line filter and a rep filter. And that's it. So that's how that works. And to move around the application, if I want to go to the new deal form, I click this. So this has got navigation on it. Where do I want to go? I want to go to the deal form. All right. When I'm on the deal form and I want to go back to the list, I use navigation. I go to the data grid. All right. So this is all done. No code, no programming. I can build this sort of application quite simply. So let's go back to the manage page. And we're going to take a look at another application. I'm going to introduce just a few additional concepts. We'll run this like we did the other one first to give you flavor for what it does. And this is, again, it's a pattern which you can see managing projects, customer opportunities, you know, many different sort of applications, I think, to this pattern. And what I'm doing is I'm tracking, in this case, accounts. So I've got a list of accounts. I can add a new account, go back to the list of accounts. I can track contacts, and of course, contacts are related to accounts. So where does this list of accounts come from? Well, that list of accounts is coming from this list here, which I'm managing. So the contacts form talks to the accounts form, and the opportunities form talks to the account form. And there's a product form that's not shown, and that's back there. So I can manage my contacts, my opportunities. So in this particular opportunity, here's the form, and you can see I've got a rich text field, and I've got some information here about the opportunity. And then proposals are put together against opportunities. So this is what would go out to the customer. And it's a similar layout with a rich text field, but in this particular case, I have a workflow for the proposal. So my manager needs to approve the workflow for the, or approve the proposal before it goes out. So the concepts here that we kind of introduced is this notion of these applications talking to each other, or these forms talking to each other, and then workflow. So in this particular app, I look at it and you can see account form, contact form, nothing scary. And if I go to the workflow tab, I can see for proposals that I have something where the rep, and I'll look at the permissions here so you can see the roles. So the rep, and I've got the create ability turned on for the sales role. And then it gets to the submitted stage, and here the manager has the pen and they can read and write it. And the manager either sends it down the approved path or the rework path. If it goes down the rework path, then the sales owner has the pen. So the difference between the sales role and the sales owner is this is who created the opportunity, where the sales role is everybody in sales. So they can rework it and then they can send it back to submitted, and it then goes through that cycle. So that's just kind of a quick look at setting up a workflow. And then in here, what you do is set up notifications where you send an email to alert somebody that they need to act on something. Perhaps you want to do a dynamic assignment, a lookup to figure out who that person's manager is, so you can build that out. So just a quick look at a couple of applications, and really the objective that I had there is to show you the simplicity as well as the power of this. It's totally appropriate for business users, and it's something that you would certainly want to give them if you were a Domino shop. So let me go back to the charts, and we'll start to conclude this demo. And I would encourage you to go to all three of these sites. So the sandbox, both the Domino Vaults and the Nomad sandbox, and you can play with and learn about these products. And you can also go to the Domino Vault showroom to download applications which you can use in the sandbox, as well as just learn about the different sort of solutions which have been pre-built that are out there. So with that, if we have a few minutes, we could get into questions, Dan.
Okay, Marty, well, let's do that. So the first question that I looked up was, will there be closed caption available here in the webinar today? And obviously we did not support that today. I did a quick look up and it looks like that WebEx does support that. So we'll take a look at seeing if we can do that on the next webinar. The next question was, even low-code developers would like to use Git and Git flow. So, and that was submitted by Roman Joss. I'm not sure, more like a statement than a question, but any comments on that?
Well, if you're using Git, you're definitely not a business user. You're an IT person, and what you want to be able to do is keep track of the work, and you probably have a team of people developing it. That's not what Domino Vault is built around. Domino Vault keeps track of the work for you. Perhaps some of that you can do in Domino, but there are other low code. I should say there is another low code product which we have, which is called Vault MX, which is more in that vein where you can manage everything in the application in Git or some other sort of repo.
Okay, and then there's another question here that says, what limitation has Nomad Web? We use quite a lot of Java functionalities. Is Java supported in Nomad?
Yeah, that is the one thing that is not supported in Nomad is Java. because it is based on the browser. So if you do have Java heavy applications, unfortunately, Nomad would probably not be the best solution for that particular application.
All right, and the next question is, can Restyle be exposed to the client so they can manage the look and feel of their database themselves?
Yeah, and so the plan is that Restyle will be available both in Nomad and via the Notes client. Obviously, the end user would have to have the right access level rights to the database for the Restyle option to be exposed. So if they have designer level access to the database, then that end user would be able to see the Restyle option in the menu, and then the wizard would be able to be run.
Okay, and the next question was, can you provide some examples of rich text round tripping? I know that I think that Marty may have mentioned one or two of those, but are there other examples of that?
Well, think of any Domino or Notes application where you've got a rich text field, file attachments, highly visual information, formatted text. Essentially, just think of Domino Vault as being able to create a web front-end application to that database. The classic one that comes to mind is kind of a document library, but there could be case management applications out there where you're using the rich text field as a drop zone or a placeholder for any artifacts that has to do with the case, whether they be spreadsheets, PowerPoint documents, you name it. If that application is something which is very valuable in Notes, but perhaps you would like to have a web front end to it, it creates the opportunity to do that.
All right, and the next question is, what database connectors are provided for data sources?
I suppose that could be a Domino Vault application as well as Domino application. With Domino Vault, you can connect to any REST-based service quite easily. We also include connectors via something called Link, HCL Link, which is included with the product, that will allow you to connect to any relational database, Salesforce, Dynamics, SAP, etc. The list goes on and on. And then there's also some integration technology that exists with Domino, of course, which has a similar set of connectors. I don't know if you want to add to that, Barry.
Yeah, I believe that when you get Volt, you also get HEI, which is kind of the Domino
Right.
backend connector and scheduling aspect as well. So all of that is included when you purchase Volt. So you do get, as Marty said, a variety of connectors depending on what your requirements are.
Okay, got a couple more here. Does Nomad support external lookups to either other Domino databases or data sources?
Yeah, so I think we can tie that into kind of what we just answered, because Nomad is just a client, right? So Nomad is just a client, so it's giving the end user the ability to access the database. The database itself, all the backend stuff occurs on the Domino layer, and that's can be controlled either via Domino or HEI as well.
Okay, and the next question is, are any person-to-person Volt training sessions available?
It's a good question. I believe there could be some partners that offer that. Certainly something I think our services organization would entertain, but there's nothing really formal directly from HCL on that.
And you do have a series of videos as well, Marty, right? As well for training.
Yes. If you go to, within the product, if you just link to the wiki, you're going to find training there. If you go to the HCL Software Academy, you're going to find training there as well with videos and step-by-step instructions on how to build it.
Wouldn't be in person or live, but it may be sufficient. Try that, and if it's not, we, like Marty said, our services, we could work out a particular SOW if it's needed.
All right. And the next question is, can Volt work with existing notes databases?
Yes, I went over it quickly, but if I'm building a Domino Vault app, I have the ability to talk to other notes databases to do create, read, updates, and deletes on notes databases.
Okay, and there's I think there's 3 more questions. The next one is, what other boxes are required to utilize Nomad, not just existing Domino V12 server?
Yep, great question. So today, if you want to run Nomad, the requirement is safe links. So you do need to run safe links as a reverse proxy for Nomad to run with Domino. Coming in Danube, which is coming in O&D of this year, so fourth quarter of this year, we are building in that functionality into Domino. So the reverse proxy functionality will be built into Domino. And starting in that release, you will not have to install any additional box or extra product in order to run Nomad. And this is actually in our early access program. So if you want to test this code out today, get your hands on it, you can. That's available in our early access program. So any Domino customer, if you are a paying Domino customer today, you can go to FlexNet, and I believe it's early access drop 4 is the most current version, and you can test that functionality out in that and give us feedback on that. But in fourth quarter, that will be GA'd in the code.
Okay, and the next one is a simple one. It says, can Volt connect to Oracle databases?
Yes, you can connect Volt to an Oracle database using the link JDBC connection.
All right. And the next one, the last one is, Barry says HEI included with Volt. Likewise, is Volt included with HEI?
Yeah,
No.
that's a good question as well. Yeah, it's not. We don't sell HEI separately anymore. So the way to buy HEI is you have to buy Volt. So they're kind of tied to each other now. It used to be that it was a separate purchase. HEI was a separate purchase. It is now an entitlement of Volt. So if you want it, you have to get Volt.
Okay, and then one last one. Does rich text round tripping require both browser and Notes client accessing the same NSF?
Yes. I mean, it's all about the Notes database with the rich text fields. I mean, certainly access it with a Notes client. And now you can access it with the browser and read, write, and update it from the browser in Volt.
Yeah, and there's a follow-up statement here that says that AFAIK Domino Volt apps use NSF with random file names, so accessing such NSF via Notes clients is not easy.
Well, stay tuned and you'll figure out how we made it easy.
Okay.
Yeah, and I see the last one there, and I'll take that, and then we can probably wrap it up here. Can Nomad run very complex applications which run only in the Notes client? Well, my answer to that would be that is the purpose of the sandbox. So what we allow you to do is upload your applications to the sandbox, and you can test it out and see how they will react and how they will work in Nomad. So you don't have to do anything in your own environment. You can just sign up for the Nomad sandbox. And you can do 2 things in there. You can upload your applications, test them out with Nomad. You can also upload your applications and then use the Nomad to run the restyle on that application if you want to try that as well. So you can make it look nice. So that would be my suggestion. If you have any questions about will my app run in Nomad, use the sandbox. That's what it's for.
All right, well, Marty and Barry, thanks so much for contributing a lot more information on our product capability with no code and low code, and appreciate all the attendees today. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.